Hi folks, welcome to Underdog Science, where I make science obtainable and understandable for students. Welcome back to my general biology playlist, and today we are going to be jumping into Chapter 1, Introduction to Biology. So without further ado, let's get underway. So this chapter is a very broad introduction to what biology is and some really big concepts in biology. And as you can see here, we are going to be using our Concepts of Biology textbook from OpenStax. All of the diagrams in this video are from Concepts of Biology on openstax.com. And here is our agenda. So today I would like to talk about what makes something living. And there are actually 8 characteristics that an organism or something needs to meet, some 8 criteria that something needs to meet to be considered living. So we're going to briefly talk about those. We're going to talk about the organization of living things. How do we organize every single living thing on this planet? Right? That sounds like a really big task, but actually we have some ways to do that. So we'll talk about that. Then we're going to talk about briefly the diversity of life and what that means. Life is very diverse, of course. I mean, you can just walk outside and you can see a wide variety of life. And then we are going to finish up the content by talking about the scientific process. And then, of course, I have some check your understanding questions at the end that we will go over. This agenda will follow us throughout the video here. So without further ado, let's move along. Okay, so our first topic is the 8 unifying characteristics of life. So characteristic number 1, and like I said, these are the 8 criteria that things, organisms need to meet to be considered living. So number 1 is order. And as you can see here, on the little picture description, it said a toad represents a highly ordered structure consisting of cells, tissues, organs, and organ systems. So let me write that down here for you folks. So cells, tissues, let's do this a different way actually. Let's get rid of this. So cells make up tissues. Tissues make up organs, and organs make up organ systems, and organ systems make up organisms. So if we were to apply this to us, let's see, we have specific cells in our body, for example, that make up our skin tissue, okay? So some of those cells would be like squamous, or it doesn't matter. We have specific cells that make up our some of our skin tissue. Our skin tissue is actually makes up our organ. Skin is our biggest organ in our body, believe it or not. You were probably thinking, oh, it's the heart or the brain. Actually, our skin is just one giant organ because it has all of these tissues that has specialized cells. An organ system is just a system of things that work together. So if you can think about some organs that work maybe with your skin, you're probably thinking, boom, your heart, right? The circulatory system. That works together with the skin to provide nutrients, to provide some clotting factors if you cut yourself, those types of things. And then we are an organism because we have organ systems. So first one here is order. The second one here is sensitivity or response to stimuli. Basically, we need to be able to perceive what is happening in our external environment. So the caption says, the leaves on this sensitive plant, and then this is the species name, will instantly droop and fold when touched. After a few minutes, the plant returns to its normal state. So plants actually have a sensitivity or a response to stimuli. just like us humans, right? So if we were to, again, make this an example about ourselves, maybe you accidentally touch something hot. What do? You pull your hand away, right? Right? That's called the withdrawal reflex. Not important, but we're having a response to external stimuli. So if you touch something hot, you pull your hand away. Perfect. No diagrams to support these next two, but the third one is reproduction. To be considered living, you need to be able to reproduce. And that can be a couple of different types of reproduction. So it can be sexual or asexual. Sexual meaning with the use of gametes. So this is sperm and egg. Asexual is without those. So reproduction, either sexual or asexual. The fourth unifying characteristic of life is an organism must be able to adapt. And adapt to what? To their environment. So what it means to adapt to their environment. So if an organism adapts to their environment, they have a better chance of reproducing. Sorry, let me fix this to make it look more like an R. So you can see a polar bear in the next photo. We're not worried about what that photo says right now, but let's use that polar bear as an example as adaptation. Let's say that polar bear was brown. Okay, polar bears live in snowy environments where the snow is white. And there are things that can eat polar bears. So let's say that polar bear was brown, and now it sticks out in its environment and it is more noticeable by predators. That polar bear now has a lesser chance to survive and reproduce. So for an organism to adapt to its environment, it needs to physically change something about itself so in its environment and has a better chance to survive and reproduce. Okay, so that's adaptation. Adaptation falls very well in line with evolution, which I believe is the eighth unifying characteristic of life, but we will get there. Here is number 5. It says growth and development. Okay, so the fifth one here is growth and development. Let's read what the caption says. Although no two look alike, these kittens have inherited genes from both parents and share many of the same characteristics. So what do you think that means? Although none of these kittens look alike, they have inherited genes from both parents. Maybe you have siblings. And maybe your siblings came from the same mom and the same dad. Do you and your sibling look alike? I have 2 siblings, and neither of us look alike. And why don't we look alike? When we grow and develop, we have what we call genetic variation. Genetic variation is a good thing. Genetic variation is a very good thing. And when we grow and develop, we can express different physical characteristics, right? So for example, my eyes are hazel and my hair is red. However, one of my brothers has dark brown / black hair and not hazel eyes. So we have different genetic variation. So for an organism to be considered living, they need to express these differences. Let me move my pens out of the way here. Oops. The sixth one is regulation/homeostasis. Polar bears and other mammals living in ice-covered regions maintain their temperatures by generating heat and reducing heat loss through thick fur and dense layer of fat under their skin. So what is this fancy word called homeostasis? It is our body's set point. Let's use an example with us. Let's say you step outside and it's May and it's getting a little bit warmer, okay? You step outside and it's about 75 degrees. You weren't expecting it. What do you do to cool off? Yes, you sweat. Absolutely. This is an example of homeostasis. Our body doing things to make sure we stay at our set point. What's our internal set point of temperature? It is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit on average. That is regulation/homeostasis. The seventh one here, energy processing. A lot of energy is required for this California condor to fly. Look at that big bird. I think they're related to turkeys. Chemical energy derived from food is used to power flight. California condors are an endangered species. Scientists have thrived to place a wing tag on each bird to help identify and locate each individual bird. Energy processing is very, very important, and energy processing for us is in the form of cellular respiration. We're going to talk about those fancy words in later chapters. Basically, what that means is getting energy from food. Getting energy from food. It's energy processing. So we finished up. I do apologize. We have evolution, which evolution is, in simple words, changes in species over time. This can be micro, or macro. Oops. Micro means small. So maybe just, within a few organisms or on a shorter time scale. Macro means large. Okay, I encourage you, we just finished up the 8 unifying characteristics of life. I encourage you, there is conversation out there in the scientific community to determine whether viruses are living or not living. Okay, so I'll say it again. There's conversation out there to determine whether viruses, so the things that infect us to make us sick, are living or non-living. I encourage you to take that question, go back and explore that, but I'm not going to directly give you the answer. So those are the 8 unifying characteristics of life. So here's our agenda. We just finished the 8 unifying characteristics of life. So now let's go into the organization of living things. So as you can see here, I have another diagram. This diagram goes from really, really small to really, really big in the the organization of living things. So as you can see here, an atom is a basic unit of matter, okay? An atom is not the smallest unit of life. That's a common misconception among actually many people. The smallest unit of life is the cell. The cell is what determines if things are living. Atoms exist in things that are not living. Atoms exist in anything. They exist in matter, and matter is anything that has mass. So atoms exist in everything. Super important. Our next chapter is about chemistry, so we will talk about that. A molecule is composed of many atoms. Okay, so just atoms put together. Nothing special there. It's a molecule. Organelles, and we will talk about molecules in our next chapter, macromolecules. So we can write that down. There are 4 macromolecules in living things that help make us up and that help make up cells. Next is some organelles. Organelles just have a bunch of molecules in them, and organelles do a very specific function inside of a cell. So some organelles in a cell might include mitochondria, ribosomes, and maybe in plants, chloroplasts, just to name a few. Okay, there's more organelles. We talked about what a cell is already. A cell is the basic unit of life. We have whole chapters. We actually have a whole chapter designated to what do organelles look like inside of a cell. Hey, look, here comes our cells, tissue, organs, organ system, and organism all coming back to us now. We talked about that. So all of this right here this is order. Order was the first thing we talked about, and the 8 characteristics, the 8 unifying characteristics of life. So we have cells, we have tissues, we have organs, organ systems, and organisms. Okay? Organisms can make up a population, and populations make up communities. Okay? Organisms make up populations, populations make up communities, communities make up ecosystems, and ecosystems make up the biosphere. The biosphere is all living things. All living things. So that is the organization of living things: atoms, molecules, organelles, cells, tissues, organ systems, organisms, populations, communities, ecosystems, and the biosphere. The memorization of these things is normally not very important, but what you need to know is it goes from really small to really big, and there are fields of biology that study all of these things, right? And chemistry studies atoms, of course. Biology can also study atoms and molecules. And when we start looking at organisms, populations, communities, ecosystems, and biospheres, we're looking at ecology. A human physiologist might study cells, tissue, organs, and organ systems. So there's a lot of different things, encompassed in the world and fields of biology. Fantastic. Let us move on to number 3. Number 3 is the diversity of life. Okay? I'm not going to spend too much time here just because the diversity of life, depending on the K through 12 institution, can be talked about or cannot be talked about. In my experience, it is not talked about very much, so I will try to keep this brief. So we call this type of classifying organisms the Linnaean classification system. And what the heck is the Linnaean classification system? Basically, there are 8 different tiers where we can classify a living organism. So as you can see in the diagram here, it shows the taxonomic hierarchy for a dog. Okay? So it goes domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. And I might have an acronym for you that might be able to help, and you can most definitely make your own. But the acronym is DUM, King, Philip, came, over, for, good, soup. Dumb, D, Kane, K, Philip, P, came, C, over, O, for, F, good, G, soup. Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. And this is the Linnaean classification system. Scientists use this all the time when they're discovering a new species or when they're trying to identify a new species. So this is really, really important, especially with aquatic organisms. We're always finding microorganisms in aquatic environments. And yeah, I mean, there's so many more organisms to be identified out there. So the Linnaean classification system takes things just like everything else in biology from a broad category to the individual species level. So from a broad category to the individual species level. So let's go ahead and do that with humans real quick. So domain. So let's use something maybe a little bit more specific. The domain of humans is eukarya. Oops. It's actually eukaryota, but To be a eukaryote, that just means we have a nucleus, we have membrane-bound organelles. We'll talk about that more later. The kingdom that we belong to, forgot I was just abbreviating these. So domain, kingdom, the kingdom we belong to is Animalia. Which makes sense, we're an animal, right? The phylum we belong to is Chordata. We are chordate. That means something very specific. The class we belong to is Mammalia. We are a mammal. The order we belong to, keep forgetting I'm abbreviating these. Here we go. Class order we belong to are primates or primates. Family, the family we belong to are Hominidae. Genus is Homo. And then our species name, instead of being called a human, you can call your friend a Homo sapien. That's our genus name. So, Eukaryota, Animalia, Chordata, Mammalia, Primates, Hominidae, Homo, and Homo sapiens. So that is how we are classified to biologists, especially evolutionary biologists. And this is just really important because it's just another example of how things are classified from really big, really broad categories to the individual species level. And this is called the Linnaean classification system. And we have dumb, King Philip came over for good soup. Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Okay, and then the last part here of the diversity of life is just the phylogenetic tree. I am not going to spend very much time here at all, but what you need to know and what I want you to take away from this diagram are there... Oops, that does not look great. So let's undo that. I'll just underline it in red. Let's actually do green. That there are 3 domains of life. We have bacteria, we have archaea, and we have eukarya. So bacteria, archaea, and eukarya are the 3 domains of life. So if you were to ever classify a living thing, a new living thing, the domain can either be only eukarya, eukaryota and eukarya mean the same thing, archaea, or bacteria. Cannot be anything else from what we know right now. So there are just 3 domains of life, and that's what I want you to take away from that. Fantastic. We made it through 1, 2, and 3 on the list, so let's move on to the scientific process. You've probably had some exposure to this in your elementary school or in your former schooling before now, but I still want to take a look at the scientific process. So that's our next topic. So the scientific process is a systematic way to answer a question. That's really how science starts, is by making an observation and asking yourself a question. It's true, right? The book uses an example about why a toaster will not toast a piece of toast. The observation is my bread is not toasted. And the question is, why won't my toaster toast this piece of bread, right? It's just that simple. And that's how you start the scientific process, or we could also call this the scientific method. Okay? Let's see. You make an observation. Let's use the toast example. My bread is not toasted. Why is my toaster not toasting my bread? Form a hypothesis. And a hypothesis is in the form of an if-then statement. If I plug my toaster into a different outlet, then my toaster will toast my bread. If then, make a prediction based on the hypothesis. My prediction is that my bread will be toasted. Do the experiment. Physically unplug the toaster, plug it into a new outlet, and see if your bread toasts. Analyze the results. This is really, 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 really important. In science, it is okay to be wrong, just like anywhere in life. As you can see here, your hypothesis can be supported, or your hypothesis is not reported, or not supported. No matter what in science, if your hypothesis is supported or not supported, We always, always, always report the results. Always. It's really, really important to communicate your findings with the scientific community because we are just that. We are a community. To work in science means to work on bettering life itself and to better results. So if no one is reporting insignificant results or results that didn't match an hypothesis, then we wouldn't get anywhere. Because then multiple different people would be trying multiple different things at once, right? So imagine this. You're in a lab with a group of friends, okay? So let's say you have friend A with you and friend B is working with another group. And let's say that friend B's group did the experiment completely wrong and they know what they messed up on, but they didn't tell you. And then they let you make the same mistake. Number one, that's not very nice. And number two, it's a waste of time. So the whole point of a hypothesis is to test it. And if the results do not support your hypothesis, that is completely okay. And this is probably one of the biggest misconceptions in science, is that scientists always have to be right. This isn't true. And this is why cancer is a huge problem. We're not right about cancer. And we keep trying different things, and we keep getting results that we don't want the majority of the time, and that is okay. It shows that we're making progress. So as you can see here, the hypothesis is not supported. It brings up an arrow to this try again box. If your original hypothesis did not work, you can just try a different hypothesis. And then if your hypothesis is supported, of course, you report your results just like your hypothesis is not supported. There's a question in the check your understanding questions about the scientific method, but I think I will leave it at that. Again, it's a systematic way to answer a question. A hypothesis is in a form of if-then statement, an if-then statement. And what's really important is it does not matter if your hypothesis is supported or not supported. You always report your results and have a conversation about it. Perfect. Okay, so we have made it through all of the content in this video. So we are now going to look at some check your understanding questions to finish up. So I believe there's 5. Yep. So let's start with questions 1 and 2. In figure 1.8, which of the following statements is false? So figure 1.8 is this figure. So go ahead, keep this. Okay, now let's go answer the question. Which of the following statement is false? Tissues exist within organs which exist within organ systems. That is a true statement, so it is not this one. Communities exist within populations which exist within ecosystems. Is that true or false? That is false. So the answer is B. What would we change to make this question true? Remember that populations make up communities. So which exist within ecosystems, that is correct. That's the correct part of the answer. Ecosystems are going to follow communities and populations. What we need to make this answer true is we need to say populations exist within communities, not communities exist within populations. Okay, and number 2, figure 1.18 in this example below, the scientific method is used to solve an everyday problem. Which part in the example below is the hypothesis? Which is the prediction? Based on the results of the experiment, is the hypothesis supported? If it is not supported, propose some alternative hypothesis. Figure 1.18 is this figure right here of the scientific process or the scientific method. So the question is asking us to, which part of the example below is the hypothesis? Which is the prediction? And based on the results of the experiment, is the hypothesis supported? Oops. So I'll give you some time to work on that. Okay, and welcome back. So, let's see. solve which part is the hypothesis. Okay? My toaster doesn't toast my bread. What part of the scientific method is that? That is an observation. Why doesn't my toaster work? That's a question. It ends in a question mark. There is something wrong with the electrical outlet. There is something wrong with the electrical outlet. I think that is a prediction. If something is wrong with the outlet, my coffee maker also won't work when plugged into it. Here's an if. We could put a then here. If something is wrong with the outlet, then my coffee maker also won't work when plugged into it. Here's our hypothesis. Okay, here's actually doing the experiment now. So this person is saying the outlet is not working. Therefore, if my coffee maker is plugged into it, it will not work. So this individual thinks there's something wrong with the outlet, not the toaster. So here's the experiment. They're plugging the coffee maker into the same outlet as the toaster, and the coffee maker works. Here are our results. Do these results support the hypothesis? And the answer is no, they do not. The hypothesis was if I plug something different into this outlet, then the thing won't work. Well, they plugged something different into the outlet in the form of a coffee maker, and it worked. So it's not the outlet. So, based on the results of the experiment, is the hypothesis supported? No. If it is not supported, propose some alternative hypothesis. So now this question is looking at this part right here. It's looking at the try again. I will let you form an alternative hypothesis on your own, but I would make it something with the toaster now instead of the outlet. All right. Last three questions. Let's see what color. I was using the color blue, so let's use the color blue again. Oops. Let you read them. Number 3, the smallest unit of biological structure that meets the functional requirements of living. What's the smallest unit of life? Is the organ? Nope. What makes up organs? Tissues make up organs. Organelle? Nope. It is the cell. The cell is the smallest unit of life. Okay. Number 4. Which of the following sequences represents the hierarchy of biological organization from the most complex to the least complex? So the most complex to the least complex. Give you some time. Okay, welcome back. Organelle, tissue, biosphere, ecosystem, population. This one's actually all sort of jumbled, so it is not this one. Organ, organism, okay, we're off to a promising start. Tissue, organelle, molecule. Nope, not that one. Organism, community, biosphere, molecule, tissue, organ. Nope. That leaves D. Most complex is the biosphere. Remember, that is all living things. And then ecosystem, community, population, organism is the least complex level. All right, number 5, a suggested and testable explanation for an event is called it has to be testable, therefore it is a hypothesis. Theory and hypothesis normally get messed up. It is another common misconception in the field of science. A theory cannot be tested, or a theory is like almost impossible to test. A hypothesis then, remember, is if this something happens, then this will happen. Statement. Awesome. Great job, everybody. I appreciate you folks coming along on this chapter 1 journey. It was very broad, it was not very specific, and we talked about a lot of different content. So if these check your understanding questions were a little bit confusing, spend some time in the video watching the specific parts that we talked about. I really appreciate you folks coming along for the ride. And in the next video, we will be talking about chapter 2, the chemistry of life. It is very important to talk about a little bit of chemistry because we talk about some reactions and stuff later on. But I will probably be splitting chapter 2 up into 2 parts. So stay tuned for the next video, which again is chapter 2, the chemistry of life. And this is Underdog Science signing off, and we'll see you next time.